You know I love Liam, right? My heart lurched. Yeah, as a friend, right? She bit her lip, hesitating. He's been hiding something from you. He's been hiding something from all of us. I frowned. What are you talking about? She exhaled shakily. Liam's been seeing someone else. The words barely registered at first. They hovered in the air between us, thick and suffocating, like smoke in a burning room. I blinked. What? Hi. Welcome to Cupidoops, where love and logic are officially divorced and chaos has full custody. Like and subscribe, things are about to get messy. Oops. Chapter 1. There's something comforting about routine. The way life seems predictable and safe until it isn't. I used to believe that stability was a given and that the people I loved would never hurt me. That trust was unbreakable. But I was wrong. Sitting in my favorite cafe, I took a slow sip of my black coffee, the bitter warmth grounding me. The hum of conversations, the clinking of spoons against ceramic cups, the faint aroma of vanilla and roasted beans, it all felt familiar. Safe. If I had known what was coming, I would have savored that moment longer. I liked this place because it was mine. A sanctuary. A place where I could disappear into my thoughts, where the world outside blurred just enough for me to breathe. I had been coming here for years, always ordering the same thing, black coffee, no sugar. Liam used to tease me about it, calling it my brooding writer aesthetic, even though I wasn't a writer. Liam. The thought of him made me smile, but it also brought a strange unease. Lately, something felt off. It was in the way he looked at me, how his texts had become shorter, less frequent. The warmth in his voice was still there, but it was thinner now, like a fading echo of something that once burned brighter. I brushed the thought aside. Relationships went through phases, didn't they? After over a year together, maybe we were just settling into a more comfortable rhythm. Or maybe I was imagining things. I glanced at my phone. 1:07 p.m. Eleanor was late. Not unusual, but still. She was the type who always arrived 10 minutes after the agreed time, dramatic and breathless, launching into a monologue about how she got sidetracked. Today, though, when the bell above the cafe door chimed and I looked up, she wasn't rushing in with an apologetic grin. She was moving slower, her steps hesitant. That's when I knew something was wrong. She spotted me and exhaled, shoulders visibly sinking before she walked over. I noticed everything in that moment, how she avoided my eyes at first, how she clutched her purse a little too tightly, how her usually effortless confidence seemed shaky. Hey, she said, forcing a small smile as she slid into the seat across from me. I raised an eyebrow. You look like you just got sentenced to life in prison. She let out a short, humorless laugh. Trust me, that would be easier. Something cold curled in my stomach. Okay, you're officially scaring me. What's going on? She inhaled deeply, like she was trying to gather courage. I need to tell you something, she said. Her voice was too careful, too measured. I set my coffee down. Eleanor, just say it. She finally met my gaze, and in that instant, I knew, whatever this was, it was bad. You know I love Liam, right? My heart lurched. Yeah? She bit her lip, hesitating. He's been hiding something from you. He's been hiding something from all of us. I frowned. What are you talking about? She exhaled shakily. Liam's been seeing someone else. The words barely registered at first. They hovered in the air between us, thick and suffocating, like smoke in a burning room. I blinked. What? Eleanor's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her drink, but she didn't take a sip. He's been cheating on you. 4 months. I let out a small, breathless laugh. Not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to process it. That doesn't make sense. I know. She swallowed. But it's true. A sharp, sinking feeling settled in my chest. No. No, this wasn't happening. This wasn't real. Liam wouldn't, he couldn't. I shook my head, my voice quieter now. How do you know? Eleanor's fingers tightened around the cup. Because she stopped, inhaling sharply before continuing. Because I've seen it happen. Her words were a slap to the face. You've seen it? My voice rose slightly. And you didn't think to tell me before now? I wanted to. She looked genuinely pained. But I was scared. And I didn't know how. Something wasn't adding up. If she had seen it, why was she acting like? Then it hit me. I felt my stomach drop, the air around me thinning. Who is it? Eleanor's lips parted, but no sound came out. The silence stretched. My pulse pounded in my ears as realization clawed its way to the surface. Eleanor, I whispered. Tell me. She closed her eyes briefly, like she couldn't bear to see my reaction. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. It's me. The world tilted. The air left my lungs in a violent rush. For a moment, I just stared at her, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for her to say, just kidding, or God, you should see your face, but the moment stretched, and the words never came. Say that again, I said, my voice eerily calm. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. I didn't mean for it to happen. But it did. I let out a breathless laugh. Oh, well, that makes it okay then. As long as you didn't mean to stab me in the back, right? Please, she whispered. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I held up a hand. Stop. My voice shook, but I refused to let her see me break. Just stop. My mind raced, flashing through every moment I had shared with them. The times we all hung out together. The nights I confided in her about my love for him. The secrets I had trusted her with. Had it all been a lie? How long? My voice was barely above a whisper. She hesitated. How long? 6 months. The number landed like a physical blow. Half a year. Half a year of deceit. I pushed my chair back abruptly, the legs scraping against the floor. A few heads turned in our direction, but I didn't care. I couldn't sit here, couldn't breathe the same air as her. She reached out, but I jerked away. Don't. My voice cracked. Just don't. I grabbed my coat, my hands shaking. I needed to get out. Now. Wait, she said desperately. There's more you need to know. I turned, eyes burning. What else could there possibly be, Eleanor? What else do you want to rip apart? She hesitated, biting her lips so hard it almost drew blood. Liam, he's been keeping more than just me a secret. Something in her voice made my skin prickle. I stared at her. What are you talking about? She swallowed. You need to talk to him. I exhaled sharply. Why? So he can lie to my face, too? Eleanor's eyes flickered with something, fear. This isn't just about me, she whispered. It's bigger than that. A cold dread slithered down my spine. I clenched my fists. Fine, I said. I'll talk to him. But as I stormed out of the cafe, heart pounding and rage burning in my veins, I had no idea that the worst was still to come. And when the final secret was revealed, it would destroy. I don't remember leaving the cafe. One moment, I was standing there, Eleanor's confession still echoing in my ears, and the next, I was outside, the cold air biting at my skin. My hands were still shaking. My legs felt unsteady. I forced myself to breathe, to move, to walk down the street like the world hadn't just collapsed beneath my feet. But it had. Liam. Eleanor. Together. For 6 months. A dry, bitter laugh escaped me as I made my way home. 6 whole months, that was half a year of whispered lies, of stolen touches behind my back, of me being the fool who believed in love, in loyalty. I slammed my apartment door behind me, the sound ricocheting through the empty space. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was still too numb, too stunned, my brain desperately trying to piece together every moment I had overlooked. Late nights at work. Missed calls that went unanswered. The times Liam said he was with friends. The times Eleanor cancelled our plans last minute. How many times had they been together while I sat alone, trusting them both? I pressed my palms against my temples. You should have seen this coming. And honestly, I should have. I thought back to the little moments, the red flags I had stupidly ignored. Like that one time when Eleanor's lipstick was smudged in a way that didn't look accidental. She had been sitting across from me, nervously fixing her hair, and I had joked, "Who are you trying to impress?" She had laughed too quickly, brushing off my words. Or when Liam started showering more often the moment he got home, claiming he needed to wash off the stress of the day. Stress, or the scent of another woman. I let out a humorless chuckle. I was the biggest idiot in the world. I sank onto my couch, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts spiraling. Anger simmered beneath my skin, but it wasn't ready to explode yet. No, not yet. First, I needed answers. I needed to hear it from Liam himself. Liam and I met back in college, though it was hardly the kind of story people would label fate or meant to be. He wasn't the charming guy who swept me off my feet in some whirlwind romance. No, it was more like a slow burn. He was my college crush, the one who sat in the back of every class we shared. Reserved, but with an air of quiet confidence. He seemed untouchable, but the moment our eyes met across the crowded coffee shop where I had been reading alone, something in me just clicked. We began to talk, and weeks passed, and I found myself gravitating toward him. He was the one who made me laugh in the quietest moments, who made me feel like I mattered when I was surrounded by noise. For 2 years, we dated, and everyone saw us as this perfect couple. Me, the girl who was bookish and sometimes awkward, and Liam, the guy everyone seemed to know, the golden boy. Eleanor, on the other hand, was my high school best friend. We'd grown up together, shared everything from secrets to ice cream after bad breakups. She was the free spirit, always confident, always sure of what she wanted. And somewhere along the way, I had introduced her to Liam. At first, everything seemed innocent enough. Eleanor and Liam became friends, just like I had hoped. But I never imagined how those innocent meetings would spiral out of control. It wasn't until tonight that I finally understood how it had all played out. I knew exactly where to find Liam now. He was a creature of habit. If he wasn't at my place, he was at his. And if he wasn't there, he was at the Ember, the bar he'd been frequenting since college. I wasn't here to cry. I wasn't here to beg. I was here to burn everything down. By the time I arrived at the Ember, my heart was pounding, but my expression was carefully composed. The air was thick with the smell of alcohol and stale conversations, the low hum of clinking glasses, and people's careless laughter. It was as though nothing was wrong in the world, and yet, there I was, walking straight toward Liam. He was sitting at the bar, half drunk, alone except for the glass in front of him. His posture was relaxed, like nothing could ever break him. Like he hadn't just spent the last 6 months betraying me. I approached, my heels clicking against the floor, and when I stood beside him, he turned, his eyes widening in recognition. There was something in his gaze, something fleeting that looked like guilt, before he quickly masked it with indifference. He hadn't expected me, but he knew. He knew what I was here for. "Tell me the truth, Liam." My voice was sharp, controlled. I wasn't here to make a scene, but I was here to get answers. He swallowed, setting his glass down on the bar with a quiet clink. You already know, don't you? The words stung, not because of the admission, but because of the way he said them, as if it didn't even matter anymore. I could feel my fists clenching, but I kept my tone steady. Is it true? Were you sleeping with her behind my back? Liam looked away, avoiding my gaze, but after a long pause, he nodded. It was the first honest thing he had said to me in months. How long? I asked, my voice shaking slightly despite my best efforts to hold it together. 6 months, he said, the words hanging in the air like poison. I felt my knees weaken, but I kept standing. Right. Half a year. And what? You were just going to keep lying until, what, Liam? Until I walked in on you? Until you got bored of me? He tensed, but didn't answer. Instead, he said something I wasn't prepared for. It's complicated. I could feel my rage bubbling to the surface. Oh, spare me. I never meant to hurt you. That was it. The line that made the fury inside me snap like a taut wire. Are you actually saying that to me right now? I hissed, leaning in close. You didn't mean to hurt me? What, you just tripped and fell into bed with my best friend? He winced, but I wasn't finished. Save it, I spat. I don't care why you did it. I just want to know one thing. He swallowed hard. What? I met his gaze, my voice barely above a whisper. Did you ever really love me? For the first time, I saw hesitation in his eyes, a flicker of doubt. I do love you, he said, his voice faltering. But that's all I needed. Stop. My voice was final. Don't finish that sentence. I don't need to hear it. His face crumbled with guilt, but I didn't care anymore. I turned to leave, but before I could make it out of the bar, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Wait. I froze, my heart pounding harder, unsure of whether I wanted to face whatever was inside. What is that? I asked, my voice cold. He set it on the counter. It's the truth. I hesitated before picking it up, staring at it for what felt like an eternity. And then, without another word, I walked out of the bar. I didn't open the letter until I was home. Sitting on my couch, the night outside thick and dark, I slid my finger under the seal, my hands trembling as I unfolded the paper. Liam's handwriting was rushed, almost frantic. I don't know how to say this in person. Eleanor and I, we were going to leave. Together. We didn't know how to tell you. We kept putting it off, ***. I wanted to end things before it got this far, but I was a coward. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did. And I hate myself for it, ***. The words blurred as I read them, not once, not twice, but over and over again. I finally crumpled the paper in my hands, tears flooding my eyes. Not because I wanted him back. No. Not because I wanted things to go back to how they were. But because the person I had loved had been planning to walk away from me as though I meant nothing. And worse, he hadn't even had the courage to say it to my face. But beneath the heartbreak, beneath the searing pain, something else stirred in me. A flicker of strength. Because if they thought they had broken me, they had no idea what I was capable of. Chapter 3. After Liam's pitiful confession at the bar, I didn't feel the catharsis I'd expected. Instead, there was a cold emptiness, a growing hunger for the truth that hadn't been fully fed. They had lied to me for 6 months, but what else had they kept hidden? I wasn't going to let them off with just a confession and a half-hearted apology. I wanted to know everything. In the days that followed, I kept to myself. I stopped answering texts, shut down social media for a while, and avoided the people I knew. But that didn't mean I was passive. No. I was just getting started. I scoured through my apartment, looking for anything I could find. I tore through Liam's old things, digging into his desk drawers, his coat pockets, anything that could give me more answers. The more I searched, the angrier I became. Then I found it. The secret was Liam's desk. I had never felt the need to snoop before, to dig through his things. But now, everything about him felt like a mystery I needed to solve. I pulled open his drawer and was met with a pile of paperwork, business files, and a few half-finished letters. But then, at the very bottom, I found a folder that immediately caught my attention. It wasn't labeled in any way. Just a plain folder. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as I flipped it open. My eyes scanned the papers inside, and then I saw it. Financial transactions that had no business being there. A stack of bank statements buried in the back of a folder. I didn't know what I was expecting, but as I sifted through the pages, my stomach dropped. Liam had been siphoning money out of our joint account, small amounts at first, but then larger and more frequent transactions. I stared at the screen of my laptop, my fingers trembling as I traced the numbers. He'd been funneling money into an account under a different name. Someone else's. Someone I didn't know. But it didn't end there. I kept digging. Messages. Private messages between Eleanor and Liam. Ones I had never seen. My pulse quickened as I opened one of the conversations. There it was, plain as day, a plan. A scheme. It wasn't just about their affair. One message from Eleanor stood out. Eleanor, it'll be easy. She's too trusting. You just have to keep her on her toes and keep her thinking she's the one in control. She'll never see us coming. And the money? That's the real prize. No, Eleanor wasn't just his mistress. She was playing her own game, and I had been nothing more than a pawn in it. They weren't just in love. Eleanor had been scheming behind my back, helping Liam drain our finances for months, even suggesting that he take a loan from his company's account to cover his tracks. I wasn't just hurt because of the betrayal, no, this was something darker. There were words about leaving me behind, about selling my stuff for quick cash, about how easy it would be to dispose of the problem. I read the messages over and over, my heart racing. How had I not seen it? They hadn't just been lying about an affair. They'd been lying about everything, my whole life, the life I thought we had built. But the worst was yet to come. I scrolled further through the messages. There was one from Liam, dated just a month ago. It was brief, almost too casual. Liam, I've been seeing someone else. I don't know what to do about it. She's different. I think I might be falling for her. For a long time, I sat frozen, my eyes fixed on the screen, processing what I had just read. Another woman? After everything, after lying to me for months, he'd gone and done it again? I could barely breathe as I closed my laptop with shaking hands. I had been living a lie. The man I loved, the man who was supposed to be my rock, had betrayed me again. And Eleanor? She wasn't just the other woman, she was part of the scheme. She'd been using me, playing me, all while pretending to be my best friend. A sudden surge of rage washed over me, but I didn't let it control me. Not yet. There was one person who still had to answer for this. Eleanor. I was going to confront her. Face to face. I showed up at her apartment unannounced. I hadn't spoken to her since that day at the cafe, but I knew it was time. I needed her to understand what she had done to me, and to herself. The door opened to reveal her standing there, eyes wide in shock. She hadn't expected me. But she should have. I was done being the one who was shocked. Done with the surprises. Done with playing the victim. I know everything, Eleanor. Her face paled as she stepped back, clearly taken aback. But she didn't say anything. Not yet. You're not just a mistress, I continued, my voice cold. You're a thief. A liar. You and Liam have been scheming behind my back for months. And I know about the money. I know about everything. I know about your plan to sell me out. Liam's not the only one who's been lying to me. I took a deep breath, my words sharp as daggers. You're not just a side piece. You're a schemer. You and Liam, you've been using me, playing me for a fool. Eleanor opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Don't even try to deny it. I saw the messages. I saw what you planned. You were never my best friend. You were just a liar, a snake in the grass, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Tears welled up in her eyes, but it wasn't the guilt I had expected. No, it was something else. Something far more selfish. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling. I was lonely. I loved him, and I thought if I kept him happy, everything would be okay. He said he loved me, too. Her voice cracked. I never meant for this to happen. I didn't want to hurt you. But she faltered. He didn't want to leave you. He didn't know how to. And then we started talking, and it felt like we had something real. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, after the lies, she was still trying to justify it. No, Eleanor. You don't get to play the victim here. You had a choice. You chose to betray me. You chose him, and you chose to destroy everything we had. And now, I'm done. She started to cry, her shoulders shaking as the tears streamed down her face. But I didn't feel sympathy. Not anymore. You want to know something? I took a step closer, my voice low and dangerous. I know about the other woman. The one Liam's been seeing. The one he's been falling for. So go ahead, cry for him. But he's already moved on from you, too. You're just another chapter in his twisted game. Her face crumpled in shock as she realized what I meant. For a moment, we both stood there, the weight of the truth hanging between us like a thick, suffocating fog. I'm done with both of you, I said, my voice final. And you? You've lost me, too. I'll never be your friend again. She reached for me, her hands shaking, but I stepped back, turning toward the door. You were never my friend, I said, and left without looking back. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the weight of it all pressing down on me. But it wasn't sadness I felt. No, something stronger was rising within me. Freedom. I was free. Free from the lies. Free from their betrayal. I picked up my phone, opening up my social media app. And without hesitation, I posted the truth, the full truth. The messages. The money. The lies. I exposed them all. Liam. Eleanor. Everything. I didn't care about the fallout. I didn't care if people judged me. They didn't know the whole story, and they never would. All I cared about now was reclaiming my life. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing. Messages poured in, friends, acquaintances, people I barely knew, all reaching out. Some were supportive. Others were shocked. But one message stood out. It was from Liam. Liam, please, just keep this between us. Don't tell anyone else. You don't need to do this. We can still fix things. I didn't even read the rest. I didn't need to. He had no power over me anymore. And then came Eleanor's message. Eleanor, you think you've won? You think this will make you feel better? You have no idea how much he means to me. I laughed bitterly, ignoring the message. Eleanor had no idea how much I had already won. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling with swollen eyes, I finally felt the sense of release I had been craving. No more lies. No more deceit. No more wondering what I had missed. I had reclaimed my power. I was free. And nothing would ever hold me back again. Chapter 4. It's strange how life can change overnight, how the things that once seemed permanent can suddenly vanish without warning. The man I had spent years of my life with, the one I thought I knew, was nothing more than a lie. My world had crumbled, and for a while, I was lost. But then, something started to change. It wasn't immediate, nor was it easy. But there was a shift, a spark of something inside me that I couldn't ignore. I moved out of the apartment we had shared. The place that once felt like home now felt like a prison, each room haunted by memories of lies and betrayal. It wasn't just the space itself that needed to be left behind, though, it was everything it represented. The illusion of the perfect life, the fairy tale I had been sold, needed to be erased completely. I couldn't take anything with me. Not the furniture, not the pictures, not the trinkets we had collected over the years. They were all tainted now. Every little thing had been a part of the deception, a part of the lie I had so willingly embraced. As I packed my things, I couldn't help but laugh. It started off as a soft chuckle, but then it grew, like a release of years of pent-up frustration. The absurdity of it all, how easily I had been fooled. How I had almost dedicated my life to a man who couldn't even be trusted with a single truth. I remembered the first time Liam had smiled at me, the way his charm had captivated me, the way he made everything seem so effortless. It was all an act, though. Just like everything else. I had been so naive, so desperate to believe in something good. But now, I could see through it all. I could see the lies, the manipulation, the self-serving nature of it all. It felt good to laugh. It felt good to let go of the anger and bitterness, to realize that I had dodged a bullet. A lifetime of betrayal, deceit, and insecurity, thankfully, I would never have to experience that. It was like waking up from a nightmare, one where I had willingly walked deeper into the darkness, only to find the light shining bright once I had the courage to turn around. But it wasn't just about moving out, about severing physical ties with Liam and the life we had built together. No, this was about cutting all the emotional ties too. The hardest part was letting go of the man I thought I loved. The man I had built a future with. It wasn't easy. It took time. But I knew it had to be done. There would be no more texts, no more calls, no more lingering glances at photos on social media. I spent a lot of time thinking. I took long walks, went to coffee shops, just sat in parks and stared at the sky. It was about finding myself again. About reminding myself of who I was before Liam, before Eleanor, before everything. I had been so consumed by them, by the dream of a perfect relationship, that I had forgotten how to simply be me. The healing process was slow, but it was happening. I started to see humor in the situation. I remembered how, when I first found out about the affair, I had been devastated. I felt broken. Now, I couldn't help but laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. I had been almost blind to the fact that Liam was a cheater, a liar, and a manipulator. How had I missed the signs? It was almost funny in hindsight. One night, I was sitting at a small cafe, sipping my coffee, and I couldn't help but smile to myself. I imagined what my life would have been like if I had stayed with Liam. I would have been in a constant state of confusion, never knowing if he was being honest or not, always questioning his motives. But now? Now, I was free. I was free to be myself, to live without the weight of someone else's lies pressing down on me. That was when I decided to start over. To reinvent myself. I hadn't been just his girlfriend. I hadn't been just the woman he used and discarded. I was me. I was someone with goals, dreams, and aspirations. I was someone who deserved happiness and peace. And it was time I started believing that again. I signed up for a dance class. I started doing things I had always wanted to do, things I had put off because Liam's plans had always come first. I spent more time with friends, people who had always supported me, people who never judged me for the mistakes I had made. It was time to reclaim my life, to rebuild who I was. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the path to something better. And then, there was him. I didn't expect it. I didn't plan for it. But somehow, fate had a way of leading me in unexpected directions. I reconnected with an old flame. His name was Adrian, and we had met years ago at a mutual friend's wedding. He was charming, funny, and kind. But at the time, I was in a serious relationship with Liam, and I had pushed him away. Now, years later, our paths crossed again. It started innocently enough. We bumped into each other at a local farmer's market. He was there with a few friends, and I was browsing the stands, lost in my own thoughts. When I saw him, a smile crept across my face. We exchanged pleasantries, talked about old times, and before I knew it, we were grabbing coffee and chatting like no time had passed. It was different now, though. Adrian was different. He wasn't like Liam. He didn't have that arrogance, that self-serving charm. No, Adrian was kind. Genuine. He listened when I spoke, and he respected my boundaries. He wasn't trying to win me over with grand gestures or empty promises. He simply enjoyed spending time with me, and I began to realize that I enjoyed his company as well. It wasn't long before we started seeing each other more. Dinner dates, walks in the park, spontaneous trips to the beach. It felt easy, natural. There was no pressure. No games. No deception. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Adrian was everything Liam wasn't. He was honest. He was steady. He didn't try to mold me into something I wasn't. He appreciated me for who I was. And slowly, my heart began to open again, this time in a way that felt real. But even as I started to feel the warmth of a new connection, I knew deep down that I had to be cautious. I wasn't ready to rush into anything. I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship, and I needed time to heal completely. I wasn't looking for another rebound. I was looking for something genuine, something rooted in respect and mutual understanding. As I spent more time with Adrian, I began to see a future with him. Not immediately, but it was there, lingering in the back of my mind. For the first time in months, I was excited about what the future might hold. And for the first time in a long time, I could see myself happy again. Life has a funny way of balancing things out. Just as I was starting to rebuild my life and find my happiness, I couldn't help but watch as Liam and Eleanor's world began to collapse. The secrets, the lies, it all started to unravel for them in ways I could have never anticipated. It started with Liam. The fallout from the public exposure of his affair had been swift and unforgiving. I had exposed everything, and the truth had come out. The people who once looked up to him, who had admired his success and charm, started to see him for what he truly was, a fraud. Friends distanced themselves, colleagues stopped returning his calls, and his reputation, the one he had so carefully cultivated, began to crumble before his eyes. It didn't take long before Eleanor faced the consequences of her actions as well. The public humiliation she endured was almost poetic. She had been so sure of herself, so confident in her ability to manipulate people. But when the truth came out, when everyone learned of her deceit, she was left exposed, vulnerable, and alone. I watched it all unfold, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph. It wasn't about revenge. It never had been. I had already won. I had taken back my life, my peace, and my happiness. I didn't need to take joy in their downfall. They had already done enough to destroy themselves. I realized then that living well was the best revenge. No longer being tied to them, no longer being their victim, that was my victory. And as I walked through life, side by side with Adrian, I knew that my true success wasn't about seeing them fall, it was about seeing myself rise. And I was rising. Rising above the lies, the betrayal, and the heartbreak. Rising into a future where love, trust, and respect would define my relationships. I had found myself again. And this time, I was stronger. Better. And nothing could take that away from me. The days were starting to feel lighter. It wasn't that everything had magically become perfect overnight, but I could sense the shift in my own spirit. There was power in letting go, and with every day that passed, I was reclaiming a little more of myself. I had moved out, cut the ties, and now, I was starting to laugh again. That afternoon, I sat in a cozy corner of a local coffee shop, sipping on a caramel latte, the steam swirling up into the air. The warm aroma enveloped me, filling me with a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. The steady hum of conversation around me felt comforting, and for once, the world didn't feel like it was closing in on me. I was waiting for Adrian. I had just spoken to him earlier that day, and he'd mentioned he was in the area and would stop by. I hadn't told anyone about Adrian yet. Not my friends. Not my family. It felt too soon, and yet, in a way, it felt like the beginning of something real. He had always been kind, genuine, and patient with me, which was the complete opposite of everything I had experienced with Liam. I had learned not to rush. Not to put expectations on what was coming next. I was enjoying the moment, for once. But just as I was settling into my seat, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting it to be a message from Adrian, but instead, it was a name I hadn't seen in weeks. Liam. I stared at the text for a moment, unsure of whether to open it. Curiosity got the better of me, and I tapped on the message. Can we talk? The audacity. The nerve. It was like he had no concept of time, no understanding of how deep his betrayal had cut. He was still trying to play the game, still trying to manipulate his way back into my life. I almost laughed out loud. But no. Not anymore. I had nothing left to say to him. But I couldn't resist the urge to respond. What exactly do you think we need to talk about? I typed, each word a little more deliberate than the last. I watched the 3 dots appear, signaling that Liam was typing a response. I felt a sick thrill at the power I now had. The text popped up, I miss you. I made a mistake. We can fix this. I scoffed. We can fix this? The audacity was almost comical. At that moment, I glanced toward the entrance of the coffee shop. My heart dropped, there he was. Liam. Standing in the doorway, scanning the room as if he hadn't just destroyed everything between us. He spotted me almost immediately, his eyes widening in recognition. A look of hope crossed his face, but it quickly turned into something else, a mix of desperation and guilt. Without even thinking, I stood up, dropped my phone into my purse, and walked toward the counter to order a refill. I didn't need to give him the satisfaction of seeing me caught off guard. He was the last person I needed to face right now. Emma, I heard him call, his voice a little too loud, the sound of his name scraping against my ears like nails on a chalkboard. I turned, keeping my back to him as I waited for the barista to hand me my coffee. Emma, wait, please. His voice softened, attempting the charm he had once used to manipulate me. I didn't turn around, but I could feel his presence behind me. His words were a tangled mess, desperate and pleading. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. You've got to believe me, Eleanor was a mistake. I never meant for things to get so far. I was confused, but Stop, I said, the word cutting through the air. My voice was calm, but it carried an undeniable finality. The barista handed me my coffee, and I grabbed it with a tight grip. Don't do this to yourself, I said, now facing him. I could see the surprise on his face at the coldness in my tone. His eyes flickered with recognition, the shock that I wasn't falling for his words. "We're done, Liam. No more explanations. No more promises. I don't want to hear it." His face twisted into a mixture of frustration and anger, but then, just as quickly, his expression softened. "But I love you, Emma," he whispered, almost pleading. "You're the only one I ever really wanted." I almost felt pity for him. For a second, he looked so small, so pathetic. But then I remembered everything. I remembered the lies, the manipulation, the months I had spent believing in someone who didn't even know how to love himself, let alone anyone else. "I don't care," I said firmly, my voice gaining strength. "You had your chance. And you blew it. You chose Eleanor. You chose lies. You chose betrayal. And now, you can keep those choices." I didn't need to say more. His face fell, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was the one with control. I turned to leave, but just as I was walking toward the door, a sharp voice called out behind me. "Emma! Please, I didn't turn back. I didn't even look over my shoulder." His voice trailed off as I stepped outside the cafe, my heart racing, but not from fear. No, this time, it was from freedom. It was from finally walking away from the years of heartache, from all the lies and the manipulation. As I stepped out into the cool breeze of the late afternoon, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. I was free. I didn't need Liam's approval. I didn't need to hear his apologies. But as I walked down the street, something caught my eye, the cafe where it all began. Where I first met Liam. Where the perfect life I thought I had started. It was funny, really. In this moment, it didn't feel like the beginning of anything. It felt like the end. I walked past the window, my reflection smiling back at me, my steps steady and strong. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing anything. I wasn't waiting for anything. I had it all. And as I walked past that very place, a powerful thought hit me. I had taken their secrets with me. And that was all I needed. Question for you. After everything Emma's been through, betrayed, lied to, and finally reclaiming her power, what would you do in her shoes? Would you walk away and leave the past behind, or would you hold on to hope for a second chance? If you think Emma's strength is something worth celebrating, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the journey for more stories of growth and triumph. But if you're skeptical and believe that second chances are earned, well, maybe it's time to rethink your choices and hit not subscribe, or do we all deserve a shot at redemption? You decide.